Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my Trailer Park White Trash Mobile Home Kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. This being the holiday season, Christmas is less than a week away, I thought I would roast a goose. Now, goose, I have to warn you, is very expensive. This bird in the store was $65. I managed to get it for $10 less. It's all dark meat, and it's dark meat for a good biological reason, and that is that geese fly. They use their wings as much as they do their legs, or maybe almost as much. Chickens and turkeys don't fly, and therefore their breast muscles don't get used very much. That's why you get light meat in chicken and turkeys. In goose, it's all dark meat, and it doesn't taste all that much different from the dark meat of a turkey. So why would you want to spend $55, $65 on a goose when you can buy turkey and chicken for 99 cents a pound? Well, it's because it's a nice treat once in a while, especially to serve to guests who've never had goose. I buy a goose about once every 2 or 3 years. It's something fun to do. So that's what I'm going to do today. And what I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to go back in time to yesterday evening and start doing my prep work. I got a little time machine back there. This is actually the evening before. If you can see by the clock on the wall there, it's about 6:45. I'm doing some prep work in advance so that I don't have to do as much tomorrow. So what I'm going to do this evening is get my stuffing started. So let's go right into the ingredients for making the stuffing for my goose. I like to use bagels when making stuffing. They're denser and they give me, I think, a better textured stuffing. So I'm using 4 bagels here, and then I've got some Italian parsley, 1 onion, a 1 pound chub of pork sausage, regular pork sausage. I've got about 9 to 10 ounces of chestnuts. I'm going to roast these and try using these in my stuffing. I haven't done that before, so this is an experiment. Then I have some fresh sage leaves. I think fresh sage is so much better in stuffing, salt and pepper. And then I'm using some of my homemade chicken stock. That's what these frozen blocks are here. When I make stock, I store it in 1 cup containers and then pop them out of the containers and then put them in the freezer in Ziploc bags. It's a lot easier to measure. If you want to use store-bought chicken broth, feel free. I've used this before. It works equally well. So those are the ingredients that I use for making a stuffing. First thing I want to do here is roast my chestnuts, set them on a cutting board. Oh, I have my oven heating to 425 degrees. So I set my chestnut down with the flat side down, and then very carefully with a very sharp knife, cut an X in the skin so that as it cooks, that'll cause it to split. It gives it room to expand. So I have to work through all of these chestnuts, and then I'm going to put them in the oven to roast. I love gadgets. So one of the things I'm working with here is I have my recipe on my color ebook reader, and I'm following along. This is actually from a different recipe, but I'm going to be using the same stuffing. So this is a cute toy to have in the kitchen while I'm cooking. In this next step, I'm cooking the pork sausage. I'm not going to brown this. I'm chopping it up with actually this is a wok spatula, bamboo wok spatula, but it's really handy. I'm just going to cook this until it's cooked through. This doesn't need to be browned. It takes about 5 to 6 minutes on medium high. And then after I cook this, I'll put in my chopped onions and cook those until they're about translucent. That beeping means that my chestnuts are ready to come out of the oven. I've cooked those for about 25 minutes at 425 degrees. While my onions are cooking, I'm going to cube up my bagels. I cut each bagel into 3 slices. And then cut them into strips. And then cut them into cubes.
like so. And then all of these will go onto a baking sheet, which I have here. I'll do my other 3 bagels, and then these will go into an oven for about 30 minutes at 275 degrees. I turn my oven down to 275, and that'll dry those out. This next step is I need to chop up some parsley leaves. I need about a half a cup of chopped parsley leaves. This might be a little bit too much when it's all chopped up, but it'll give me a chance to test my new chopping tool. A dear friend of mine in San Diego sent me an Alaskan ulu. I've wanted one for a long time, so now I finally get to use it. It makes chopping very quick because you just use a rolling motion, chop back and forth, and you can reduce this down pretty quickly. All right, so that made quick work of that. I have to say it's very lightweight, and therefore rather than using a 9-inch chef's knife, which is much heavier, this is a lot less fatiguing. It's fun to use. So thank you, Patsy, for the Alaskan ulu. My next step, while these are still hot, they've cooled down enough. These are the chestnuts. They've cooled down enough that they're not too hot to handle. So I want to get the shell off, and I want to get the skin off of all of these. And this is going to take some time, but you want to do this while it's still warm, while they're still warm, while they're still hot. If you can get your fingers on, and they'll peel a lot more easily. If you wait for them to cool, they're going to be very difficult to peel. I need to moisten my cubed bagels, so I melted 3 cups, those 3 cups of homemade chicken stock in this beautiful French ceramic saucepan that my good friend Marilyn gave me. I love this thing. So you pour that in there and just stir this once in a while. Leave it for a few minutes. Those bagels will absorb all that liquid. I find that 4 bagels cubed and dried thus will absorb 3 cups of liquid. While I'm waiting for my bagel cubes to absorb the liquid, I'm going to use my Alaskan ulu that my dear friend Patsy gave me to chop my sage leaves. This makes very quick work. I love using this thing. It's just so easy. There's so little effort that's required. That's starting to look good enough there. So that's my sage. And we're pretty near getting ready to assemble the stuffing for the goose. I can see from turning my bagel cubes here that there's no standing liquid at the bottom of the bowl, so I'm going to start adding my ingredients. There's my sausage meat. I'm adding one more ingredient that I didn't mention yesterday evening when I was talking about the ingredients for this stuffing. I'm adding some wild rice. I cooked this morning about 45 minutes. I think it's just appropriate for when working with geese. It's not going to add a whole lot of flavor, but it just seems like wild rice seems appropriate in a stuffing for geese. Then my onions, chopped chestnuts. I got about 6 ounces after I sorted through those chestnuts and took out the ones that didn't look very healthy. And then finally, my sage, fresh chopped sage, and my fresh chopped parsley. The hand is just so much more efficient than a spoon. All right, I'm happy with that. Now, because this is all cooked ingredients, it's safe to taste any of this. I'm going to taste this for salt and pepper. Could use a little bit of salt and definitely use some pepper. So my salt and some fresh ground black pepper. And then again, stir all of this in. And this should be ready to set aside. I'll cover this and set it aside while I'm preparing the goose. One more taste. Yep, that's good. That's perfect. One thing to know about goose is that it's a very fatty bird, and therefore you need to help to get the fat out of it. You can use a skewer, which I'm going to use if you've got a sharp fork, like those two-tined carving forks. You just want to poke it all over, especially in the fatty areas. And that'll let the fat rend. So I'm going to start pushing some stuffing into this goose, and I'm pretty much satisfied with that. All right, the rest of this I'll put in a casserole dish, and as I mentioned, about an hour before the goose is cooked, I'll put that dish in the oven and let it cook with the goose. I want to roast this goose at 350 degrees until it reaches an internal temperature of about 155 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Then when I let this rest, it'll come up to about 165, 170, and that's considered a safe temperature for all fowl. Because goose rends so much fat while it's cooking, you do want to use a rack in your roasting pan. And then I'm going to use a digital thermometer. I'm a big fan of digital thermometers. It's a lot more accurate than trying to guess how many minutes per pound. Even with the instructions, I find that it's just better to work with a digital thermometer. So I'm going to hook this up, and I said I'm going to cook to it about 155, 160, and then let it sit to come up to about 170, 175 for a safe temperature for fowl. Here is our roast goose, fresh from the oven. This is going to rest now for about 15 to 20 minutes. That'll allow the juices to redistribute inside, also let the heat distribute a little bit better. And then this goose will be ready to carve and serve. And then let me carve some breast meat here so you can see how dark it is. I don't know how well you can see that, but see, that's just as dark as turkey meat. Let's put some stuffing on there. Oh, that looks nice. Look at that. Goose and stuffing. The last step is to see how good it tastes. See, that's definitely dark meat. Tastes very much like turkey dark meat, but it's got a richer flavor to it. And then my stuffing. The flavor, the chestnuts, the texture of the chestnuts almost disappears into the stuffing, but you can taste the chestnuts, and it's the wild rice that gives the stuffing an al dente texture to it. Ah, this is very good, so I'm going to go have my dinner. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.